Hi, everyone. I'm Carmen, your game guide to a career in the games industry, and I want to talk to you about some tips on how you can build a career in games and have that career last for a long time. So, some of the most important things to know when you're starting out, especially, or when you're aspiring to get into games industry is how do I find a job? Once I'm ready to be a professional, I've studied my craft, I've learned different skills and mastered my particular craft. How do I actually find a job? I think the best way to find jobs is to look at who made the games you like to play. So if you like action adventure games or story narrative games, or if you like Souls-like or like Dark Souls, those kinds of games, find out who makes those games. What studios make those games? Where are those studios in the world? And if you're open to moving around, depending on where you get a job, then you'll have more options. If you live in a place that's not New York or LA, then you may have to move. There are some studios that allow people to work remotely now, but there are other studios that will give you some kind of stipend or some kind of signing bonus or something to help you with the move if you're willing to relocate if they decide to hire you. So there are also studios in other countries. So if you're in the US or if you're in another country looking at studios in the US or somewhere else in the world, sometimes studios will give you a working visa so that you can live in that particular country, or you can work remotely if that's an option at whatever the given studio is. So you have some options. It just really depends on the type of life that you want to have. But it's important to note that if you are going to be moving, you should consider how that's going to affect your life. What is the cost of living in those particular places? How is that going to affect quality of life that you have? Is that something that you're happy with? When I was first starting, I was like a kid and I didn't really know what that stuff meant. And I think when people talk about it, it can be really vague. So when I say your quality of life and your cost of living, what that means is how much is it going to cost you to survive at a base level? Paying your rent, buying food, paying for utilities, paying your student loans, healthcare. If you have kids or if you have parents or other people that you're taking care of, dependents, how much are you going to need to have per month to take care of them? All of that kind of stuff. And then on top of all that, if you are able to, depending on how much money you're making in your life situation, all that, have money for savings so that you can save for retirement, for emergencies, for the future, to do investments, however you want to save that. Now, this is not a financial channel, and I am not a financial advisor, but I think that having context for what it means to understand and look at the cost of living and your quality of life in a holistic way, is going to help you a lot. Because unfortunately, just because you're applying to places where they make games that you like, that doesn't always mean that they're going to give you a livable wage. And it also doesn't mean that they're going to be looking out for you, because they don't know your individual situation. And, sometimes, unfortunately, some of these, especially the larger studios, are looking for people who are young and unaware to have them as cheaper labor. So it's important to find videos like this, find other people out there who are going to share this information with you so you can be prepared. If you're a younger person and you're just getting started, having a parent or a mentor or a friend or someone that you can reach out to online that can answer some of these questions and help you get understanding for how you can prepare yourself. If you're a student in college, this would be a good topic to talk about with your professors, or with a counselor, like a guidance counselor, to give you some advice on how you can prepare yourself for actually going out into the real world and working. I think that it's really important, especially if you're moving to Los Angeles or to New York and you've never been to those places before. You don't have family or friends or a network of people who could assist you if you get into trouble in those places, and you don't know what it's like living in those places. I think every place kind of has its own ecosystem and its own, if it was a game, each place would have a meta, and you got to figure out what the meta is of each place you're going to live so you can have the kind of life that you want to have. And you also have to consider, if you live in a place where the cost of living is lower, maybe you live somewhere where housing is really affordable and buying food isn't super expensive and you can go out to eat for less than $20 per person or whatever, and then you're about to move to a place where the cost of living is way higher, that's going to affect your lifestyle. Like maybe you live in, like, own or rent a house, and maybe the place you're living to, you would have to get an apartment or a studio or live in an ADU, which, for those who don't know, an ADU is kind of like an additional unit, like a backyard, like a small apartment or a small unit in the backyard of someone's house or on someone's property, something like that. So that's a considerable lifestyle change to make. And I think that, like, it can be really exciting and kind of like you can be blinded by the excitement of getting to work in the games industry, getting to make these kind of games that you have always wanted to make on these big brands that you love, like Marvel and Star Wars and Last of Us and all this big exciting stuff. But most of the time, you're going to be in your real life outside of work. And so it's important to think about what your actual life will be like and how you can prepare yourself so that you can have an enjoyable life. Because I think that if you wait until you get into those situations, it's a lot harder to make that lifestyle change for yourself. And in another video, I'll talk more about like how to negotiate salaries, how to move up once you're actually in the industry and all that other kind of stuff. But for now, we're just focusing on like getting started and like thinking about moving and cost of living and figuring out your finances. As I mentioned before, I'm not a financial advisor. So if you want financial advice, find a professional, preferably like a CPA or a fiduciary or somebody like that who has some credentials who can actually help you with that. But anyway, I think this is a good place to start. If you have questions, leave them in the comments. I'm happy to help. And I hope that you enjoyed this. If you did, leave a like for the video. It really helps me out. Subscribe. I'm going to make more videos like this, and I hope to see you in the next one.